The type of comedian, like I'm observational. Like I pay attention to things like college students. Take somebody who goes to a nice school, like the University of Southern California. Ask them what school they go to. You get a nice, quick answer. What school you go to? USC. New York University. You get a nice, quick answer. What school you go to? NYU. Ask somebody to go to community college. You get a much longer response, don't you? What school you go to? Well, see, right now, what I'm doing, I'm going to get a couple credits, right? Then my financial aid is supposed to come through. Then I'm going to transfer, man. They say school kills creativity anyway, man. I feel.
Take out some notebook paper, and we're going to explore the option of college. Leaving high school is a big change in your life, and you're about to move into a whole new area of life where you're going to be more responsible for yourself financially. You're going to be responsible for yourself in terms of your academic success. Your parents won't be there to check on your grades. In fact, parents can't talk to the college and professors and ask about grades. That has to all come through you. It's a big change, and so regardless of whether you go to college or you go out into the workforce, life's never going to be the same as when you were in high school. Life is uncertain, and careers are uncertain. So it gets kind of complicated when we talk to guidance counselors and teachers and we ask about jobs and career options, because things keep changing. When I was in high school, there was no such thing as web design. I would have thought you were talking about spiders. Regardless of whether you go to college, you're always going to be a lifelong learner, so going to college doesn't negate that. So you're always going to be responsible to take workshops and to learn in a variety of ways, and it won't always necessarily come through college. So what I really want to focus in on is a 4-year degree, the best choice for you. So we're going to spend most of our time talking about that. One of the things that I think is really important to explore out is most students are capable of doing well in college. You have to ask yourself, are you ready for it? Are you mature? Do you have the self-discipline? Do you have the stamina to push yourself? I found college to be harder, but yet I did better academically. I found myself more engaged with the curriculum, and I enjoyed my professors. I enjoyed the experience. It's not a continuation of high school. It's quite different. Is a liberal arts education the right choice versus trade school? I did both. Trade school being art school, where you focus in on just the trade. Liberal arts education, don't be deceived by the title, simply means that you take a wide variety of courses and then you have a major. So a liberal arts student can also take philosophy, theology, languages, and so on, rather than just focusing in on welding or tool and die work and so on. So it's a very different experience. Since I've had both, I can speak to both. Going to art school and studying just art is a very different experience than sitting in on a philosophy class and then moving to a world history class and then picking up some art classes. And I'm maybe a glutton for punishment, but 9 years, 5 different states, and I don't regret any of it. I enjoyed all of it. It's helped make me who I am today. This is in the diversity of viewpoints and experiences that I've had are irreplaceable. I treasure them. And this is where I ended in Vermont, getting my Master of Fine Arts degree. You can ask people what the benefits of college was for them, and for me, a few of the things that I would list would be the friendships, networking, where you find people that are heading in the same direction as you, and sometimes you're even collaborating with these people, and then eventually opportunities pop up. Friendship and networking are not the same. They can be, but networking is where people are interested in some of the same disciplines that you are, and you learn who works hard, who's responsible in college. And so when a project comes up and you possibly are the one that's doing a little bit of HR work and helping to build the team, it's very possible you'll go back to your friends and networking that you did in undergrad or grad school. You become more of a global thinker because you have You develop relationships and friends with people that are not of your same ethnicity, socioeconomic class, your own religion, and so it makes you much more empathetic. College is good at giving you that breadth, so that's really what the liberal arts education is for, is that breadth of knowledge, that width. But then, of course, in your major, going deeper. So whatever high school classes you took in your discipline, when you get to college and possibly grad school, you're going to go deep. That's a huge advantage, to be studying with research professors. Some of them are helping to build future curriculum in things that you're studying. It's been interesting over the past years watching as students are able to take college credit in high school, and this goes back. Middle school kids are taking high school credit, so when they get to high school, and then they're taking college credit to get to college, and then in college level, they're taking grad credits that are dual credits, and then of course as a grad student, these credits can work towards their PhD and so on. We're all on a fast track. And I understand college is expensive, but do watch out for this whole idea of education being about get it done, and get it done as cheap as possible. Money must be considered, but the idea that if I could just get through my education as fast as possible, I think you really miss out on a lot. And I've heard college students talk this way. They say, I can't wait to get my degree, rather than it being about learning. Learning's wonderful. It's a great experience. Why would you want to cut that short? And can you really cut it short? Can you learn as much? You know, our states all have kind of working towards this idea of being able to finish any degree within 3 years. Yeah, I understand that that's sometimes really financially responsible to do that. I clearly didn't finish my degrees that quickly, and I took full loads, weigh it all out, because just simply getting the degree, and especially since more and more people have a college degree, the value of it might be less. What that degree really consists of, what's the real value of it, rather than just simply an exercise that we try to just finish up. Historically, most students wouldn't have got into college. There were very few colleges, and it was the expectations were high, and quite frankly, the limitations for families of lower income would have put limitations on it, and the expectations for kids to work on farms and so on, and provide for family siblings would have just been daunting, and not made it feasible for everybody to be able to go to college. Today, in today's society, it's kind of almost a given that if somebody wants to go to college, they should be able to. I like that. I think the acceptance rates, as you can see on this chart, do make it doable, when some colleges pretty much will take you regardless of what your grade point average is, or SAT. And then, as you can see, some colleges, you can have a really high SAT score, high grade point average, finish the top of your class, and you still probably are not going to get into that school. Here's an example. This is Harvard, and you can see the, of course, massive number of students that have applied, but all of that red are obviously students that have not been accepted, and you can see perfect SAT scores, and it looks like a bloodbath. There's a wide variety of expense in terms of tuition costs, and you first look at tuition costs, and depending on where you're going to live, whether it's Indiana or California, the housing costs can be 2-3 times as much, depending on where you would need to get dorming and housing. There's a lot of help online. There are a lot of options in terms of being able to kind of crunch numbers and look at what you possibly would be paying out. It didn't used to be this way. It felt very much, when I showed up for my first year of art school, there was a lot of mystery in terms of how much money I was going to get, what my financial aid package looked like, and what my costs were going to be. But things are much clearer, and things, you will get a letter that will explain everything out to you when you're accepted, and you file all your financial aid papers. Everybody's required to fill out a FAFSA form, so it can be done earlier, but at the latest it would be done at the beginning of March. There's a difference between financial aid and merit aid. Some schools do not give merit aid at all. They only give financial aid. Merit aid would be, of course, based on SAT scores, your grade point average, class rank, art scholarships. You have lots of different things that can feed into merit. But that's not the same, and so it's possible you could be eligible for one or the other or both. So depending on what grade you're in, you still have some control over this. So things you really need to be paying attention to are your grade point average, SAT scores, what classes are you taking, and how will that fit into your major? And are you taking the more difficult classes? A resume isn't typically requested, but the things that go on a resume do apply to the paperwork that you're going to submit. So work, community service, all of those things feed in. They want to know that you're a can-do kind of person, that you're aggressive and that you're jumping in and doing things. They want to know, what do you do with your free time? And if you have free time, community service is always a safe bet to, if you're keeping up with your grades and doing other things, to jump in and show that you care about your community and you're doing things to make it a better place will only help you. You have sports and art portfolios and real specific things that can help you with your college applications. FAFSA can be a little bit complicated, and a lot of colleges offer free workshops that you can go to and literally sit down with your parents and fill out FAFSA. You'll need to bring your tax forms and so on, but I highly recommend it, especially if you're the first child to go to college, that you schedule that FAFSA meeting with people that have done this before, and they can walk you and your parents through it. I think you'll be much less frustrated than if you try to do it at home by yourselves. A typical college major is 120 credit hours, which is approximately 40 classes. 80% of students change their major. It happens. And then also you have double majors and minors. Scheduling classes is complicated, and you'll really want to work closely with your advisor, and you'll also want to get advice from other people taking that major, what majors will make the most money. And quite frankly, that's complicated. It really feels like the best option is to figure out what you're suited for and then try to excel at what that is, rather than try to do litigation because you heard that being a lawyer is good pay. That doesn't feel like a good bet, and it's probably going to be a hurtful disappointment and disaster when your junior year you realize you just don't like what you're doing, and there are other people that are passionate about it and they're excelling, and you are slipping out of it because you never really wanted to be an architect or go into pre-med and so on. So you really want to try to figure out where your strengths are, and that will help you figure out where you could plug into the marketplace. And then of course that helps you figure out what major that you would want to do. I'm a first generation college student, so for me, I was kind of on my own when I was applying to Cal Arts and Kubert School and so on. So I really probably went overboard with my sons, but I spent a lot of time researching schools and helping them. One of the things I did was just took index cards, wrote down the name of the college and when things were due and so on. And that was helpful. So you can do spreadsheets, it works well, so you can create a spreadsheet that shows the cost of the college, tuition, housing, when are deadlines, the name of the department chair and the major and so on. So whatever works, but you will want to stay organized, and being organized is essential. There's software too that you can go on, which will always kick out dates of when things are due and will kind of almost act as a secretary and tell you how to proceed with the whole process of getting your applications in. It gets even more complicated when you do early applications versus just the traditional application. But that also increases your odds to get into those harder, those what we call dream schools, rather than your safe schools. So, but whatever works best for you in terms of staying organized is the right method, obviously. If you do a college visit, of course, they will kind of run through some of these important deadlines for you too. And I have a special little video at the end that just shows college visits. If at all possible, you really need to do college visit. It's so important, and the most important part of a college visit is to sit in on classes in the major and sit in and get a feel for how that institution handles the major that you want to study. Here's 3 websites that are really important. The first one might be too late, but it's basically the savings plan for college. But college data is really good. It can be very helpful in figuring out merit scholarships. And my favorite is Niche, is a really good site, and that's where you saw the Harvard image that showed the acceptance rate. But you can figure out your major, put in your grade point average, SAT scores, and it will calculate the likelihood of you being able to get into that program. And it is different. So if you applied to Purdue as an engineer major, getting in's much more difficult than if you were an art major. so depending on the school and the popularity of the program, and quite frankly, if you are a minority or female student applying to a school in the hard sciences, if they have a deficiency of female students in, like for example, a chemistry major or so on, that your likelihood goes up. So when I went to college, it was pretty much, you show up and you had to figure out what supplies you need to buy, textbooks. Colleges have changed a lot. You have like a week-long activities where you get to make friends, and they have a party. So the transition to college has really become much more user-friendly. They don't want them to come get homesick and head home. And so the quicker they can help you make friends and become comfortable in the new space that you're at, the better. You probably will get homesick. I did. My first day at art school, I just remember thinking, these people are all very strange. And I went behind my apartment that I was staying at, which is kind of like a dorm, and walked through the woods and just cried. And I'm like, I feel so out of place. This doesn't feel right. And then went back and made some friends and was very happy there. I have great memories there. But I knew people that had that experience, and then they headed home immediately and never finished college. So colleges realize that they need to help you acclimate. They do a lot of communication with parents, not about your grades, that's not legal, but just about the activities and the things that are taking place on campus and ways for you to plug in. And the fundraising starts immediately, so parents will get phone calls pretty quick to ask for contributions to the future alma mater of their student. Your school guidance counselor is an essential person to talk to about a lot of this stuff. And a lot of schools are actually going to want a letter of recommendation from that individual. So it's someone you want to be talking to. School guidance counselors are really busy, so it's hard for them to get to know you as an individual. I would say your parents are extremely important. It's rare that I ever meet a parent that isn't aggressive and trying to help their child become successful and want to figure out ways to see that happen. And they know you well, so sometimes by just having those conversations, and if your parents are really busy and you feel like they're not focusing in on some of these issues, then get them away. So say, Mom, Dad, can I take you for coffee? And let's just go sit and get out of the house and get somewhere and have some questions. Ask them, how much money are you giving towards my education? It's possible that they're not planning on giving any. I did all 9 years of my education on my own. It doesn't mean parents don't love you. Maybe they're just not in that position. But you need to know that. And if they tell you they can't give you money, that doesn't mean you can't go. It just means you may have a little more debt. It's really rare. I ran across at one time a mother who was actually sabotaging her daughter, didn't want her to go to college, and did everything she could to keep her from going, including not allowing her to get her driver's license, because she just wanted her to, in her daughter's words, to stay at home with her in her trailer and go on welfare. And I've only run into that one time, and that is just so not the situation that most students are in. Parents want their kids to be successful, and in that situation I referred her to the guidance counselor, and they got her the help that she needed. If your parents are incapable, you feel like they just don't know enough about the college application process, that's really where you need to be leaning on your teachers for that help, because teachers want to be there for you and help you through that process. One of the things about experiencing a liberal art education is it really helped me appreciate the fact that as I'm studying things that I wouldn't have chose on my own had I not gone to college and was required to take these additional classes. By being forced to study things that I might not have picked, it really did broaden my interest. I'll give you an example of how we don't always know. Like for me, I knew for sure I was going to be a Disney animator, so I started my career studying with a Disney animator, and everything was looking great. My abilities and character animation was good. Milt, the department chair, was saying he believed in what I was doing, and then I fell out of love with animation. I still make art, but I didn't want to be an animator. And so I had no clue at the time I would ever go into education. That wasn't even on my radar. So we change our minds. Even in the things we hold the most dear, we change our mind. But true story, I'm at University of Delaware. Dr. Williams is talking in a class, World History. And he always went into such detail about things, dates and names. This guy could remember everything, no note cards, and he would just go. And sometimes he would go into such depth that I remember one time he was talking about Crigador Island in the Philippines, and he was going into the detail. The Japanese came in, and unlike the Americans that dug big tunnels, the Japanese would dig little holes, and he's just describing all this when they took over. It's a lot of detail, only to find out several years later that I would be on that island, Crigador Island in the Philippines, trying to remember the details from Dr. Williams' class as I'm walking through the brush, looking out at the ocean, and walking into some of these tunnels. That's the irony of life. It's like when you're young, you think for sure you know what you're going to be interested in, and what you think for sure you want to be a marine biologist, and you know what kind of music you like. You have it all figured out, and then you realize maybe classical music isn't so bad, or jazz, and you realize that maybe sushi does taste good. So you start to really explore out things, and you will not be the same person when you're my age that you were when you were 17 years old. So that humility is really important as you approach your education. I proctored the SAT test quite a few times, and I'll be proctoring it again this weekend. It really is an endurance test, as some of these tests are, where you really want to come in well rested and ready to push yourself. How do schools pick for scholarships? Quite frankly, what they're doing is they're looking at students trying to figure out who do they want to be a future alumni, and who's going to be their superstars, who's going to make their school look good. Like, what are you going to do? What are you going to achieve? And everybody can't be a superstar, but when they're looking at you and they're looking over your grades and your achievements and your community service and activities, they want to see a certain movement, momentum, and energy that's taking place. And then they're trying to be prophetic and try to predict, is this the kind of person that's going to someday come back and be a guest lecturer in our school, give money back to the school, be in the news for good reason. So that's what they're doing. I mean, that's the simplest way I can put it. I know it's number crunching, and they do a lot of that too, but some of it's just simply who's going to be an impressive alumni. By today's financial standards, it's very possible that if I had just taken all the money I spent on college, and of course the lost time of work, I'd already have retired. And yeah, maybe so. Maybe that's true. I like to think that to some extent my income has been based on college, and I've been able to make money also. But it does go so much further than that in terms of it not just being a dollars and cents situation. But that being said, I hear really sobering stories of students coming out with over $100,000 of debt for college, and sometimes the majors that they want to go into just can't sustain that kind of debt structure, because they also then will need to have transportation and housing and so on. And then some want to start a family, so to have that additional debt can be a problem. So you want to use wisdom in terms of acquiring debt. Debt is not something you can declare bankruptcy and get out of. College debt will stay with you, and you need to seriously consider it. A lot of students will work during the school year. Most students have time to do it. Depending on your major, if your major is a little more difficult, it can be problematic, but some majors would allow for you to be able to work, and some schools are less expensive, so you could almost work your way through school and pay for it by the time you figure out your summer hours and so on. So there's no reason for you to go into major debt if you handle it well. I was visiting an art school grad program, and I sat down and was kind of watching this guy paint, and he said, yeah, my girlfriend and we headed off to the mountains a few weeks ago because I just needed to find myself. And he said, I couldn't be in classes, I just headed off. And the two of us headed off into the mountains just to kind of get our heads back into a good place and come back and paint. And as we kept talking, he admitted that they both had up to $100,000 of debt each, the two of them. And it's very romantic that they went off to the mountains to find themselves. But it's fiscally painful to have that kind of debt. And so there are cheaper ways to find yourself, and being on campus is a great place to learn, but if it's just self-actualization, it can be a problem.
Organizations work and how they're constrained by energy, because that was one big organizing principle, and then he said there's this other huge organizing principle that structure is supposed to lie, and that is heredity of the other gene, which means that we should expect all four gamete genotypes in equal frequencies. 1/4. It got changed. Yeah. Okay, so yes, and my direction which it's changed is the correct direction, but not everyone's on board yet. Who would like to explain? Correct. So let me paraphrase what you said. That was I wish I had gone down with the microphone. That was absolutely perfect. So because these individuals were produced, they were produced by mitosis. That means each one of these is identical genetically. And we get, very good. How did you do it? Well, it's pretty straightforward, right? You just have to account for all the alleles that are in this population. So if we want to know the frequency of the dominant allele, which was P, right, or big A, the frequency of the big A allele, well, we have, where is the big A? These individuals, these nine don't have the big A at all, right? These two do.
Goes to infinity, and n goes to infinity. The sum, I equals 1 to n. Sum j equals 1 to n. I'll make the next j star.
We're going to walk into it, take a look. I believe a class should probably just be wrapping up. So they're used to sort of kind of taking a look and
And remember, it's not about a degree, it's about an education.